Alright, so here's where we are again. Remember, we need this much, and we're pretty close. We need to turn a little bit more down here, turn a little bit more down here. Then we can turn this down a shade too, to transition into handle. Remember, this is a kid's toy. The handle doesn't have to be very long, but we need to turn this down a little bit further as well, because we only need enough space here. We only really need about probably that much at the most, and that's just proportionate wise. We need that much. We really probably don't even need quite that much, but that would make it just fine, and it would give us a longer handle to bore our holes in here for the top itself. Okay, so I know that I've got enough length here now. I need to turn a little bit down here and a little bit down here, but I've got the length I need. Now I've got to get my diameter right. Now I'm going to make this about a 1/2 inch hole that this top's going to go up through. And it's going to have to be smaller just a little bit than the hole, because it has to ride in there fairly freely. So I'm just adjusting these calipers so that they just fit, and then I'm going to tighten them up a little bit so they don't quite fit. And that's the diameter I'm going for. So I've got a ways to go here to take that down. Okay, so before I go back over here and start messing with this, I'm just kind of trying to square off an area right here. Real slow and easy. Okay, so we took it off the lathe and we cut our top end off of it now, because this was real thin. We just chopped it off, and we'll finish up the top here in a little bit. But that's the spinning top that we're going to use. Now we're going to finish up our handle, and then we'll start drilling our holes. Okay, so not too bad off here. We've got some holes to drill before we can do any finish work anyway, and it's still soaking wet because it's green wood. So it's not going to be final sanded yet either. We might as well go ahead and get our holes in it and things like that now, and let it dry out a little bit, and then we can work to get it more of a finished state at that point. I'll tell you what, this stuff ain't no joke to drill through, that's for sure. Okay, once we've got our holes drilled in here, we'll come in here and just kind of clean things up a little bit with our knife. Just cut around those holes. And the drawing that I saw had kind of tapered holes in it, and I suspect that that's just for freedom of movement on the outer edges. So I'm kind of tapering these holes a little bit with my knife anyway, just to kind of clean things up. Alright, so once we get these holes trimmed out, which is a trick in itself because you got grain running in every direction, you got to kind of account for while you're cutting. Then you can just kind of shore things up a little bit and make sure that everything looks fairly even. And then you've got to drill a hole in the top itself, and it's a small hole. So we use a different drill for that. Okay, so the way this works is the top goes in this hole, and a string gets wrapped around the top. And basically you hold on to it, and you pull the string, and that spins the top and drops it out onto the table or whatever, so they can go, yay, it's a spinning top. So basically I've got to figure out where that hole needs to be drilled in the top, and I'm just going to draw a line pretty much in the center around that top, and drill my hole in from there. And that's just a winding hole, really, is all that is. I'm not sure that these holes are quite big enough. I may need to waller it out a little bit on the inside more, because you've got to have room inside there for that string to wind around the top. So those holes may need to be a little bit bigger than what they are. I do have some stick out here, so I'm good and stable there. Everything else is pretty much right, but I'm not so sure that those holes don't need to be a little bit larger going through there. Okay, so I've locked and shimmed this dude in the vise here, and I'm going to grab a drill bit out of here that's a little bit larger than the cordage that I'm going to use, which is a piece of hemp cord, and get this drill bit locked in this hand drill. Okay. I'm through. Now I just need to get it back out of there. There we go. Okay. Alright, so once we get our holes in here now, we can kind of get after this handle area with our cabinet scraper. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Get that one there, it's got a couple of knots we got to deal with. There. Thing is releasing moisture as fast as I'm taking it down. It's turning dark colored again from the moisture releasing out of that fresh cut wood. One spot right here around this knot and this transition. I'm going to come in there and get that with my knife. Grab a more utility knife here and get after that. Just kind of get that transition carved down all the way around there. Get that married up. That's one spot I couldn't get real well with a lathe. Got a piece of sandpaper right here, actually. Get right after that dude. Sanding saw would take care of that real quick, but I don't really feel like vicing the thing up when I can just do it with my hands real quick and get it done. Alright, so we've got our spinner, we have our top, and I just took a piece of number 12 bank line here. I melted the end of it so it wouldn't come unraveled too bad. And I just tied a bowline knot in the other end. The way this thing works is you take the top and you should be able to shove it in any of the 4 holes. And it should come out the top hole no matter what you do. And you have a hole in that top that you drop your string through once it's inserted in the spinning handle there. And you just wind it up. And after you wind it up, you should be able to grab the string and pull on it while holding the handle. And the top should spin. So it's a simple child's toy, although it's a fairly complicated project, especially for a beginner on the pole lathe, I found. But it teaches you a lot of things. You can still see the lathe marks. I left them in the top itself so that people would know it was handmade when my granddaughter's older. Again, it needs to be final sanded, maybe have some decorative work done to it and things like that, but that's the way you make a child spinning top. And anyone who doesn't believe that entertainment of a child is part of survival either doesn't have kids or doesn't have grandkids. That's pretty fun. That can entertain me for about an hour. Well, folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me out here today for this simple project on how to make a child's toy, a spinning top. using our pole lathe. A couple hours and a pile of shavings later, a few traditional tools, and we have a nice toy to entertain a youngin' with. I appreciate your views, I appreciate your support, and thank you for everything you do for our school, for our business, for our family, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.